What separates a trader who burns out after 2 years from one who generates over $100 million in trading profits across a decade and a half? Today, we're diving deep into the psychological journey of Lance Breitstein, former top trader at Trillium and mentor to 7 and 8 figure P&L traders. His story isn't just about market strategies or technical analysis. It's about the mental game that most traders never master. Here's what makes Lance's journey fascinating. Every breakthrough came disguised as a breakdown. Every major psychological shift happened when he thought he had it all figured out, only to have the market serve him a slice of humble pie that would either make or break his career. By the end of this video, you'll understand the 15 psychological principles that transformed a struggling rookie into one of the most successful proprietary traders of his generation. But more importantly, you'll see how these mental frameworks can revolutionize your own trading psychology. The foundation years. Learning to think like a trader. Year 1, 2011. The psychology of process over outcomes. Lance Breitstein started trading in 2011, and like most new traders, he was his own worst enemy. He had all the classic psychological problems: hesitating on entries due to fear, chasing moves because of FOMO, and holding losing positions far past his stops because of hope. What separated Lance from traders who wash out was his response to these failures. Instead of blaming the market or his broker or bad luck, he took a step back and asked a crucial question: how do I systematically get better at this? He developed what he called a deliberate practice framework for trading. Every day became about process improvement rather than profit maximization. He tracked his emotional states, decision quality, and rule adherence, not just his P&L. This psychological shift is profound. Most traders judge themselves by daily results, creating an emotional roller coaster that destroys consistent execution. Lance learned to judge himself by process quality, which gave him the emotional stability to improve steadily, even during losing periods. Year 2, 2012. The mental trap of overtrading. Lance's second year brought a psychological revelation he called the broken slot machine concept. He noticed that a few high-quality trades represented the majority of the firm's profits, while most traders were giving back gains on marginal setups. The psychological insight here is crucial. Our brains are wired to seek activity and variety. In trading, this instinct is deadly. Lance realized that the best traders weren't more active, they were more selective. He began restricting his trading to what he called in-play stocks, tickers with exceptional chart setups and volume or fresh breaking news. This required tremendous psychological discipline. Sitting idle while the market moves triggers our fear of missing out. But Lance learned that in trading, patience often pays more than action. Year 3, 2013. Building psychological anchors. Year 3 was Lance's breakthrough year, and it centered on building what psychologists call cognitive anchors, predefined decision trees that remove emotional interference during high-stress moments. Lance developed a playbook of 2 simple, mean reversion setups that he called his easy money trades. These weren't guaranteed winners, but they were psychologically easy to execute because they had clear entry rules, defined risk parameters, and consistent sizing protocols. The psychological principle here is powerful. When you're trading in real time, stress hormones flood your system and impair decision-making. Having pre-planned setups with mechanical rules removes the cognitive burden of real-time analysis and emotional interference. This year marked Lance's transition from struggling to profitable, and it happened because he solved the psychology problem, not because he found better technical patterns. The testing years. Psychological resilience under pressure. Year 4, 2014. The psychology of adversity. Just when Lance thought he had trading figured out, Year 4 delivered a psychological gut punch that nearly ended his career. He took a $100,000 loss on a single trade in Allergan due to an unexpected after-hours headline. This moment taught Lance perhaps his most valuable psychological lesson. How you handle adversity defines your trading career more than how you handle success. Most traders face a moment like this in their journey, what he calls the hero's journey moment, where you either evolve or quit. Lance's response was systematic. He developed what he called a drawdown protocol, a series of mental and practical frameworks for navigating dark periods. This included strict loss limits, emotional management techniques, and perspective-maintaining practices. The key psychological insight: drawdowns aren't failures, they're inevitable parts of the trading process. Traders who develop robust systems for managing their mental state during these periods separate themselves from those who don't. Year 5, 2015, the expected value mindset. Year 5 brought what Lance called the bobblehead concept, a psychological framework that completely changed how he evaluated his performance as a trader. Instead of judging each day by P and L results, Lance started evaluating his performance based on expected value improvement. The question shifted from, did I make money today, to, did I become a better trader today? This psychological reframe is transformational. It allows traders to extract maximum learning from losing trades while maintaining emotional equilibrium during inevitable rough patches. While other traders would get frustrated and go to the bar after red days, Lance would use those moments for his most important improvements. Year 6, 2016, the power of environment. When Lance helped build Trillium's new Chicago office, he discovered a psychological principle that most individual traders overlook. Environment shapes performance more than talent. Trading feels like an individual sport, but Lance realized that being surrounded by other serious traders created a powerful psychological dynamic. The shared accountability, idea flow, and performance pressure elevated everyone's game. This taught him that psychology isn't just internal, it's environmental. The people around you, the physical space you trade in, and the culture you're part of all impact your mental state and decision-making quality. The mastery years, advanced psychological optimization. Year 7, 2017. The daily report card system. Lance discovered the concept of the daily report card from Dr. Christine Berger at SMB Capital, and it revolutionized his self-reflection process. Instead of vague post-market thoughts, he began systematically grading himself in key psychological categories. Each day, Lance would evaluate his emotional control, rule adherence, opportunity recognition, and risk management. This created a feedback loop that accelerated his psychological development. The principle here is that what gets measured gets managed. Most traders have no systematic way to evaluate their psychological performance, so they repeat the same mental mistakes indefinitely. Year 8, 2018, patience over prediction. Year 8 brought Lance's right side of the V concept, a psychological shift from trying to predict market moves to waiting for confirmation signals. Lance realized he was falling into the psychological trap of trying to be right rather than trying to be profitable. He was stepping in front of moves, trying to call tops and bottoms, which put him in constant conflict with market momentum. The shift to waiting for the right side of the V, entering after moves had exhausted and begun reversing, required psychological discipline, but dramatically improved his risk-reward profile and win rate. Year 9, 2019, the compound psychology of small improvements. Inspired by atomic habits, Lance embraced what he called relentless 1% improvement. Each day, he'd identify one small way to improve his trading process, technology, or knowledge base. The psychological power of this approach is that it makes improvement feel manageable and inevitable rather than overwhelming. Instead of trying to reinvent himself periodically, Lance focused on consistent micro-improvements that compounded over time. Year 10, 2020, the psychology of exponential sizing. The volatility of 2020 gave Lance the opportunity to apply everything he'd learned about psychological preparation meeting market opportunity. When his edge was extreme, he sized exponentially bigger. Most traders scale position sizes linearly, but Lance recognized that outlier performance comes from maximizing A-plus setups. This required tremendous psychological confidence in his systems and the emotional control to handle much larger position sizes. This wasn't reckless gambling. It was the culmination of 9 years of psychological development finally meeting the perfect market environment. The evolution years, sustainable peak performance. Year 11, 2021, optimizing mental state. By his 11th year, Lance had mastered the technical aspects of trading. The limiting factor became psychology and performance optimization. He realized that mental state determined how consistently he could execute at the highest level. Lance began working with performance coaches and health coaches, treating his mental game with the same systematic approach he applied to his trading strategies. Sleep quality, stress management, and emotional regulation became as important as chart reading and risk management. Year 12, 2022. The psychology of adaptation. When market conditions shifted in 2022, Lance watched many traders cling to strategies that no longer worked. His psychological advantage was his speed of adaptation, the willingness to quickly abandon what wasn't working and build new systems for changing conditions. This taught him that survival in trading isn't about being right. It's about being adaptable. The best traders don't try to force markets to fit their psychology. They adapt their approach to match market requirements. Year 13, 2023. Trading for freedom, not just profit. Lance's 13th year marked a psychological evolution from pure performance optimization to lifestyle integration. He began allocating more energy to swing trading and options selling, creating a more sustainable approach to markets. This shift reminded him that trading should be a means to an end, freedom, not an end in itself. The psychological maturity to step back from maximum performance in favor of balance represents the final stage of trader development. Year 14, 2024. Diversification as risk management. Lance expanded beyond stocks into options, futures, and overnight trading. Each new instrument required psychological adaptation to different risk profiles and market dynamics. The mental framework here is about building true diversification, not just in positions, but in psychological approaches to different market environments and timeframes. The wisdom years. Never stop learning. Year 15, 2025. The beginner's mind. Even after 15 years and over $100 million in profits, Lance's biggest lesson is psychological humility. The moment you think you've figured it all out, you've started declining. Lance continues networking with top traders, asking questions, and refining his systems. He's learned that in trading, there's no psychological finish line. The best traders maintain what Buddhists call beginner's mind, staying curious, hungry, and open to learning. Conclusion: the real secret. Looking at Lance Breitstein's 15-year journey, what stands out isn't the money or the accolades, it's the psychological evolution. From a struggling rookie to a seasoned mentor, every year brought mental breakthroughs, often disguised as setbacks. The real secret isn't in the technical strategies or market analysis. It's in the systematic development of trading psychology, the ability to manage fear, greed, hope, and ego in real-time market conditions. Lance's journey proves that greatness in trading isn't found in one moment of brilliance. It's earned through relentless psychological refinement over time. The market will humble you, test you, and try to break you. But if you approach trading as a psychological practice, measuring growth over profits, process over outcomes, the rewards, both financial and personal, can be extraordinary. The question isn't whether you'll face psychological challenges in your trading journey. The question is whether you'll develop the mental frameworks to turn those challenges into stepping stones toward mastery.